Committee for Thursday, April the 12th, 2011 to order, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Griffin,
Present.
Vice Chairman Andropon,
Here.
President Brame. Here. Mr. Guidry,
Here.
Mr. Hassan, oops, Dr. Mackey,
Present.
and Mrs. Trimmie. Here.
Is there an agenda on this one?
Yes, there is. It's right, the first thing you open.
Really?
Yep.
I wonder where.
Budget
I have
committee.
nothing in mind but an open book.
Here, I'll get you one. Get you,
Look,
he's got that big print.
it was a uh-oh moment.
This is,
I don't have no agenda. There's nothing in my book when I open it.
okay, Shaq.
No, I got
Can
one.
proceed.
I got one.
The Budget Committee now is ready to begin its business. For number 3, we have consideration of making a recommendation with reference to the following requests for special service districts for grant funding from the Gaming Fund.
Move.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is that for all bullets?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
I'll read it to go into the records, please. 3-1 is Ward 4 Fire Protection District, number 4 of Ward 4 for $33,590.40 for equipment. 3-2 is Ward 4 Recreation District, number 1 of Ward 4 for $100,000, allocating $50,000 from Ward 4 and $50,000 from District number 14, and that is for the purchase of equipment and construction. 3-3, Ward 5 Community Center and Playground District number 5 of Ward 5 for $17,000 for upgrades. 3-4, Ward 6 Fire Protection District number 1 of Ward 6, $5,249.73. That's for the purchase and installation of signs. 3-5, Ward 6 Water District number 7 of Wards 4 and 6 for $45,000 for the purchase of equipment. 3-6, Ward 7 Community Center and Playground District number 3 of Ward 7, $14,549.60 for costs associated with hard surfacing. Number 4, consideration of making a recommendation with reference to the following requests for public entities for grant funding from the Gaming
So
Fund.
So
move.
moved. Second.
We have a motion on number 4, all bullets.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have any concerns or any questions? If not, for the record, 4-1, Town of Vinton, $25,000 for the purchase of a service rescue fire truck. We have an agenda note attached. The total cost for the service fire truck is $175,000 for the town, and the Town of Vinton has committed to fund the remaining of $150,000. And 4-2 is Ward 8, Town of Iowa, $15,000 for the purchase of mobile broadband communication equipment. Number 5, consideration of making a recommendation with reference to the following request for grant funding from the Economic Development allocation of the Gaming Fund.
Move on 5
Second.
All bullets, 5,
and all bullets.
5-1, 5-2, 5-3, 5-4. Do we have any concerns, any questions? For the record, 5-1, consideration of making a recommendation with reference to a funding request in the amount of $35,000 for Community Center and Playground District number 2 of Ward 4. 5-2, consideration of making a recommendation with reference to a funding request in the amount of $30,000 for Community Center and Playground District number 2 of Ward 4. 5-3, consideration of making a recommendation with reference to a funding request in the amount of $25,000 for the Louisiana State High School Rodeo Association. 5-4, consideration of making a recommendation with reference to providing funding in the amount of $50,000 through the Community Foundation of Southwest Louisiana Association for costs associated with the reconstruction of Millennium Park in Lake Charles. Number 6.
Move on 6.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion or concerns? Number 6, for the record, consideration of making a recommendation with reference to approving a request from the Lake Charles Symphony for grant funding in the amount of $4,700 for the 2/11 family concert. Without any opposition or concern, number 6 passes, as well as 1 through 5. On number 7, consideration of making a recommendation.
Move on 7.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. For the record, consideration of making a recommendation with reference to a funding request in the amount of $7,500 for our care help of Sulphur. Any questions, concern? If not, 7 pass. Number 8, consideration of.
Move on 8.
We need a second.
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 We have a motion and a second on number 8. For the record, consideration of making a recommendation with reference to allocating funds in the amount of $51,000 for the Ward 4 gaming allocation for the purchase of materials. We have an agenda note. This project is a joint effort between the Public Works Department and Gravity Drainage District Number 5 of Ward 4. Public Works will be responsible for administering these funds. Without any opposition or concerns, number 8 will carry. Number 9.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any concerns? Opposition?
I think Mr. Miller.
Yes, sir.
Well, I was just going to kind of explain the reason we were trying to establish this loan guarantee reserve account. It really kind of was working with Sandy and Jay Delafield on item number 10 that it came up. And we realized that, you know, a guarantee when a district or component unit would go try to borrow money, you know, a guarantee from us, you know, would make it really a risk-free loan, and it would give them give them a good interest rate on that loan. So to come up with a conduit for this to happen, we came up with the idea of establishing, Brian and I, and with the establishment of a $2 million loan guarantee account, out of gaming receipts to be used to guarantee bank loans originated by the Calhoun Parish Police Jury component units, their districts. We put in some steps for this process. The first would be the receipt for a loan guarantee request from a component unit. The juror or jurors representing that area would have to concur with that request. The component unit, the district, would have to go to a bank and apply for a loan, and would have to have the ability to demonstrate that they could cash flow that loan, that they could pay back, demonstrate the ability to pay back that loan in the appropriate time period of the loan requirement. The bank would base their interest rate on our guarantee, but would review still we want the bank to review their basic ability to repay the debt. So we want them to be able to stand, you know, be able to independently have the ability to pay back the debt. The finance division would also review the due diligence done by the bank to get, you know, to again review the district's ability to fund their debt service payments as they come up, because we want to assure before we come to the police jury to request a loan guarantee out of this reserve account that we'd feel comfortable that the district could pay back the debt services payments as required. The loan guarantee, as a loan guarantee as a loan is approved, a loan guarantee is approved, that would be a reduction in the amount available out of the $2 million reserve account for subsequent loans. So, for example, what's coming up in item number 10, the $100,000 would bring down the reserve down to $1,900,000. That reserve would be decreased every time a new loan guarantee is approved by the police jury, and as the principal repayments are made, that would increase the amount that is available for subsequent loan guarantees. But we feel that that is a way to help those that are able, you know, those districts that are able to help themselves by having the ability to pay back the debt, but at the same time be able to you know, lend them our credit on a limited basis, you know, the ability to give them a better interest rate, because the risk to the bank would be negated by our guarantee. So that's what we wanted to prove, item number 9, before we went to number 10, as a conduit to, for the action, for the upcoming request in item number 10.
Thank you, Mr. Milner. That was a good report. Perhaps some of the police bureaus later on would want a copy of the stipulations that you have for future references.
Yes, ma'am.
That was real good. We have Police Bureau Andrew Pond who would like to speak at this time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I, too, agree. Your presentation was good. I'm not trying to be overcautious or qualify my statement here. I have no problems assisting any service district because those people really are under our umbrella, for lack of a better phrase. The one thing that I think we need to be careful about is going into the finance business. That's the first thing that I want us to be very cautious about. The second thing, I don't think, if you said it, I missed it, and if you did, I apologize. The $2 million is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But I think somewhere along the way, we need to put a cap on the request for funding. That's my opinion. I'm going to do what the majority says. I know that you're on top of these things, Jerry, and there's no disrespect to you. Mm-hmm. But I think we need, and I'm not in a position today to tell you what the cap is. I'm in a position to tell you today that I am in favor of some kind of cap. Otherwise, you got $2 million in here, and somebody comes along and that we need $1,500,000. Well, once we start this, and I wholeheartedly support Sandy's request for the Water District in Starks. I think it's a great move, and $100,000 in the big scheme of things is not a whole lot of money if you want to get right down to it. I just want to be very cautious that we just don't leave it open-ended, and that's my position. I think somewhere along the way we're going to have to put a cap on what you can ask for. I don't know how the rest of the committee feels. I'm expressing my view, and that's where I am. And I don't want to belabor the situation, but I want to make it perfectly clear that I'm going to be in favor of some kind of a cap.
Yes, sir.
I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew Pond. Mr. Milner, you can respond.
Yeah, there's could be further details, of course, as the police jury so chose to, put whatever caps applicable. We just wanted to make a conduit that would be available. In one way, this is better than us directly loaning them the money, and at the same time is we're going to do our due diligence to ensure, to feel very comfortable before we recommend to the police jury that this loan is the repayment is going to be forthcoming, and we feel comfortable about it. Otherwise, for example, somebody came with a $200,000 request, and we feel like the cash flow only would allow a $100,000 loan, we would tell that particular district that we would support a $100,000 request for a guarantee, but not a $200,000.
Mr. Andrew Pond?
It's not a rebuttal, but I think we're headed both in the right direction as to what we need to address. And I appreciate you, Jerry. I really do. I know you're on top of these type of things, and I don't think financially we'd be here today where we are if it wouldn't be for you, and I give you all the credit for that.
Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. I yield.
Yes, sir. Mr. Guidry?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Milner, just a point of clarification.
Okay.
When we talked about actually being somewhat of a, guess what I should pay it, not as a bank, but more so just being able to credit the loan for them. We're not going to be obligated in any way to pay that loan back. They're going to be responsible.
Well,
We're just going to make sure that they're good on it.
Well, we could be held accountable if they did not be forthcoming with the debt service payment. So if they didn't pay them, we're being guaranteed. That's the reason the interest rate would be low, because the
Right.
bank would look at us if they don't pay. But what our job will be before that, us and the bank, bank first and then our review subsequent, would be to try to look at the available funds that they're going to be using to pay back that debt and make sure that they're sufficient enough to fund that debt as
Right.
required in the future, unless
Okay.
something extraordinary would come forth.
So we would know that prior to actually.
Well, we would know that, based upon at that particular time of review, that the funds were available to, you know, in our opinion, the funds will be available to fund the debt service as they come up, the payments, the principal and interest payments as they come up in the future. So we would feel comfortable at the time, but you never know what the future holds.
Right.
If we have a hurricane and, you know, everything,
Right.
so
I
they
understand.
could, to say that we never could be called upon to pay back the debt would not be accurate either, but
Okay.
the chances should be slim.
Thank you for your report, Mr. Milner. Madam Chair.
Thank
I yield the
you.
floor.
Do you have a comment, Ms. Trimmy?
No, I think that Jerry explained it very well. Thank you.
Okay, without any other discussion or opposition, we did get a motion and a second to pass number 9. We'll go to number 10.
Move on number 10.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for number 10. For the record, consideration of making a recommendations with reference to approving a loan guarantee in the amount of $100,000 for the Waterworks District Number 14 of Ward 5 for water line installations. Do we have any objections? Ms. Trimmy?
I just want to just put this out for the record, that the $100,000 will be a guarantee for 5 years, and each year, $20,000 will come off of that guarantee. So within 5 years, the $100,000, every year, $20,000 will for 5 years, but then after 5, the $100,000 stays in there, never comes out, and we earn interest on this money. It's not, you know, going to come out. So thank you for y'all's consideration.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Trimmy, for that information. Do we have any other matters or concerns at this time, Mr. Andrepont?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nothing to do with finance other than to plug the Fast Pitch 56, which is next weekend in Sulphur, state softball tournament statewide. Encourage everybody to come out, see some good games and a lot of good athletes.
Thank you, Mr. Andrepont, for that information.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Now call the regular meeting of the police jury Thursday, April 21st, 2011 to order. We'll have the invocation by Mr. Scott, followed by the pledge. Please stand.
Father, we thank you today for this opportunity to just stand before you and be humbled in your presence. Father, we thank you that tonight, as we continue to go about your business, that you would give us the wisdom and guidance that we need. We ask that you give us, each and every one of us, a peace in our heart and a joy in our song, Father. We ask that you bless this parish along with this state and this country. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Yes, sir. Mr. Andrepont?
Here.
Mr. Collins?
Here.
Mr. Farnum?
Here.
Mrs. Griffin?
Present.
Mr. Guidry?
Here.
Mr. Hassan?
Here.
Mr. Landry?
Here.
Dr. Mackey?
Present.
Mr. McMillan?
Here.
Mr. Scott?
Here.
Vice President Spell?
Here.
Mr. Stelly?
Here.
Mr. Sias?
Present.
Mrs. Trimmy? Here. And President Brame.
Here. Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
I'd like to welcome everybody here this evening. If you have a cell phone, I just ask that you would silence it. And if you'd like to speak on any item on the agenda tonight, there's some blue slips in the back of the room. If you just fill them out and get them up front to Jessica. With that said, we'll move to item 5, presentation of certificates to Lake Charles Bull basketball team and coaches in recognition of an undefeated season of winning the Ward 3 League 9-10 under championship and the Gosport Youth Try-Hard Express Battle of Lake Charles Championship. Mr. Guidry.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, let me just commend the parents on being able to spend the time and take these kids to practice each and every day. And this is a unique bunch of kids because half of them I know, and half of them I've pretty much raised myself. And I just want to say to them tonight how proud I am of them and being able to go undefeated, because a lot of what we talked about were discussed a lot of times. You say, Mr. Guidry, how can we get on you guys' show? I say, for one, you got to win the championship, and you have to go undefeated. So, guys, here tonight, you made it, and I just want to congratulate all of you. And the one guy I would like to bring forth right now is Coach Brian Jones. And I want to go ahead and read a certificate for all the kids, which will read as follows. Certificate of recognition presented by the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury on this day, 21st day of April 2011, to Coach Brian Jones of the Lake Charles Bulls basketball team for assisting the coaches in winning the 2011 Ward 3 League 9, 10, and Under Championship and the 2011 Gosport Try Hard Express Battle of Lake Charles Championship. Congratulations on a job well done. Coach Brian, I know there were a couple things that happened throughout the week that maybe a lot of you may not have been aware of, but the mother actually of the team had fallen ill, and it kind of put a little bit of a damper on a lot of what we wanted to do tonight. So actually all the kids couldn't make it because actually the memo didn't get out to all the kids, but there are some here tonight, and I didn't want to go without not honoring those kids for the accomplishment that they made throughout the whole league itself. And guys, what a great job. And I'm going to ask Coach Ryan, would he come up and just introduce the kids that are here tonight, and we have a certificate for them.
Okay. Good afternoon. How y'all doing? I got Traylon. You can come on up. Traylon Query. Javen Query.
Yo, man.
Jay Plumboy. And Caden Doucette.
Kind of get in the middle a
Where the
little bit.
president at? Go get your picture. Just a minute.
President can come, but you know I like pictures. I'm going to get in this and go.
And by yourself, huh?
We know.
Why you wore your glasses? Oh, hand when I see one.
Tell me when you're ready.
Yeah. Y'all ready?
Thanks. Thank y'all so much, guys.
I know a hand when I see one.
Oh, no, that's.
You keep practicing that, you're gonna get real good at it.
Congratulations, guys. Thank y'all so much.
Different bunch.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. Okay, we'll move to item 6, presentation by the Southwest Louisiana Convention and Visitor Bureau regarding the recent bid award for the Calcasieu Parish to host the 2012 and 2013 Junior High School and High School State Rodeo Finals at the Burton Coliseum Complex. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you so much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
As we just said, the Louisiana High School Rodeo and Junior High School Finals Rodeo were awarded to Calcasieu Parish for 2012 and 2013, and that is greatly thanks to you. We really appreciate your help. It has not been hosted since 2001. The vote was 19 to nothing. So we won over Monroe and Gonzales and DeRitter. And bringing this event back is really a prime example of local people working together to bring business home. Y'all remember Tico Soto, my sales director. Tico's sales department was very involved, along with members of the jury, in this bid, and I'd like him to come up and tell you a little bit more about it.
Shelley. Good afternoon. Well, before I begin, I need to get properly in attire. Sandy, this is honor to you.
Thank you, Tico. Go get him, cowboy.
And I promise that before the rodeos actually come, or the finals come, I will get an actual cowboy hat. But this is the only thing I could find. Sorry. Sorry, Sandy.
Okay.
Well, we're excited. We have a lot of work went into this bid, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about after I introduce Stephanie Rodriguez. She is the superintendent of the Cameron School District and also a board member of the Louisiana High School Rodeo Association. Stephanie?
Thank you very much, and that's why I'm here tonight, to thank you for your support, as well as the support of the Convention and Visitors Bureau to make this happen. Since we left in 2001, we've actually doubled the association. At that time, up until 6 years ago, it was a grades 9 to 12 statewide association. Now there's a grades 6, 7, and 8 junior high division, as well as a 9 to 12. We're bringing them in consecutively, so we will have approximately 500 families here for nearly 2 weeks in June of 2012 and 2013. So we certainly hope that we multiply your investment many times over to Southwest Louisiana. As a resident of Cameron, of course, we are very excited that it is back in Southwest Louisiana. And I just wanted to have the opportunity to thank you. This is, from my professional day job perspective, quality extracurricular activities, including athletics like you just honored, are so important. And the Louisiana High School Rodeo Association is one of those prime examples. So thank you for allowing our young people the opportunity for the next 2 years to be able to compete at the highest level in the state here in Southwest Louisiana at Burton Coliseum. So thank you, Ms. Trimmy. Thank you to Mr. Jason and our friends at the CVB for making this happen.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. I logged on to the Louisiana High School Rodeo today, and on their homepage, the very first paragraph in red, it gives kudos to the Convention and Visitors Bureau and, of course, the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury. So this kind of shows you how much they appreciate the contribution that we all did here in Southwest Louisiana. And then, of course, this is the bidding for 2 years, but we hope to keep this going on and on and on, another 53 years. So I've prepared a packet for each one of you. We won't go through it, of course, because it's quite lengthy, but it kind of gives you an idea of all the hard work that went into this presentation. And this is something that the committee to bring the rodeo back has worked on for many months, along with some of the police jurors. And then Eric Zartler, our liaison to the sports market, was a big part of this as well. And I'll close by saying I'm so excited to announce that the economic impact of this event is $28.7 million. That's coming to Calcasieu Parish for the next 2 years. So we are extremely excited about that. And again, I just want to thank the police jury for their commitment, because this is a win-win for you guys, this is a win-win for us, this is a win-win for the parish. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Okay. Are we done with item 6? Okay. Number 7, take appropriate action on application for liquor and beer permits. Mr. Vickers.
We have no applications tonight, Mr. President.
Okay. Can I get a motion second?
Move to receive report.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Hearing and discussion. Hearing none, motion carries. Item 8, consideration or approval of payment of all.
Move on to 8.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Anderpont and a second by Mr. Guidry. Is there any discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 9, consideration of approving the minutes of the regular meeting of the police jury dated March 24, 2011. Have a motion by Mr. Fornum and a second by Mr. Sias. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 10, consideration of approving the minutes of the special meeting of the police jury dated March 29, 2011.
Move on 10.
Have a motion by Mr. Anderpont and a second by Mr. Landry. Is there any discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 11, consideration of approving the Budget Committee report dated April 21st, 2011. Ms. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Budget Committee met today, Thursday, April 21st at 4:45. I will present to you the items that we passed unanimously for the approval from this jury. Item 3.1, Ward 4 Fire Protection District Number 4 of Ward 4 for $33,590.40 for equipment. 3-2, Ward 4, Recreation Districts Number 1 of Ward 4, $100,000, allocating $50,000 for Ward 4 and $50,000 from District 14. 3-3, Ward 5, Community Center and Playground District Number 5 of Ward 5, $17,000 for upgrades. 3-4, Ward 6, Fire Protection District Number 1 of Ward 6, $5,294.73 for equipment. 3-5, Ward 6, Waterworks District Number 7 of Wards 4 and 6, $45,000 for equipment. 3-6, Ward 7, Community Center and Playground Districts Number 3 of Ward 7, $14,549.60 for costs associated with hard surfacing. And number 4 was consideration of making a recommendation with reference to the following requests from public entities for grant funding from the Gaming Fund. For 1, Ward 7, Town of Vinton, $25,000 for the purchase of a service rescue fire truck. The agenda note stated the cost of the service rescue fire truck is $175,000, and the Town of Vinton has committed to the fund remaining of the $150,000. For 2, at Ward 8, Town of Iowa, $15,000 for equipment. And number 5.1, consideration of making a recommendation with reference to a funding request in the amount of $35,000 from the Community Center and Playground District Number 2 of Ward 4. 5.2 was consideration of making a recommendation with reference to a funding request in the amount of $30,000 from Community Center and Playground District Number 2 of Ward 4. 5.3, consideration of making a recommendation with reference to a funding request in the amount of $25,000 for the Louisiana State High School Rodeo Association. 5.4, consideration of making a recommendation with reference to providing funds in the amount of $50,000 through the Community Foundation of Southwest Louisiana Association for costs associated with the reconstruction of Millennium Park in Lake Charles. Number 6, consideration of making a recommendation with reference to approving a request from the Lake Charles Symphony for a grant totaling $4,700 for the 2011 family concert. Number 7, consideration of making a recommendation with reference to a funding request in the amount of $7,500 from Health Care of Sulphur. Number 8, a request of $51,000 from the Ward 4 Gaming allocation for the purchase of materials related to drainage improvements on Joseph Road. Number 9, consideration, and we will have explanation from Mr. Milner on this, consideration of making a recommendation with reference to establishing a loan guarantee reserve account for components units of the police jury in the amount of $2 million to be dedicated to the economic development allocation of the gaming fund. Number 10, consideration of making a recommendation with reference to approving a loan guarantee in the amount of $100,000 for Waterworks Districts Number 14 of Ward 5 for water line installation. Before I ask for approval of the Budget Committee, I would like Mr. Milner to give more explanation on number 9.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Griffin. We had talked about this in the Budget Committee meeting. It relates to number 10 when we come down to the $100,000 loan guarantee request for Waterworks District Number 14 of Ward 5. In doing that, we needed to establish a conduit for which to make loan guarantees. So Brian and I discussed it, and we come up with an idea of the idea of establishing a $2 million loan guarantee reserve account out of gaming receipts to be used to guarantee bank loans originated by our component units. We established some steps in the process, which would be number 1, we would receive a loan request from a component unit, and the juror representing, our jurors representing that district would approve that request. And then the component unit would be required to go to a bank, apply for a loan, and be able to demonstrate to the bank their cash flow ability to repay the debt on a timely basis. And the bank would, with our guarantee, would give them a better rate. But we wanted the bank to make sure that they had the capability on their own, separate or apart, to be able to fund the debt with their revenue sources that they had to do that with. We would also, the Finance Division would also review the bank's due diligence to ensure that the component unit does have the ability to repay the debt before we brought any request for a loan guarantee to the police jury to be made out of this loan reserve guarantee account. So that would give the district hopefully a very good interest rate, which they couldn't necessarily get as good by themselves because, with us guaranteeing it, the bank would be at no risk at all. The loan guarantee balance would never exceed $2 million, as, for example, in this one we have in step 10, item number 10, $100,000. That would bring the loan guarantee balance down to $1,900,000. Any additional loan guarantees would reduce that from $1,900,000 to whatever the next one would be for. As loan repayments made, that would increase the balance. So if, as Sandy District is going to be repaying this debt back over our loan reserve guarantee back over 5 years, 20,000 of that 100,000 would be coming back into the free up in the loan reserve account to make additional loans as requested. So we felt it was a way to help those that could help themselves, but at the same time we were going to do our due diligence to make sure that we feel that the guarantees would not really be called upon in the future, and that really what we'd be doing is trying to get them a better interest rate so they could help, so they could do more with what they had.
Okay, Jerry, we have Mr. Landry. You'd like to ask you a question?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Milner, it sounds like a good program. My question is, has item 10, evidently it hasn't gone through that process yet. If you're just introducing it to us tonight, have you they gone to the bank and the bank looked at the numbers and it's going to cash flow? Have you done that as well? Or?
We feel comfortable with this project. Really, this 100,000 that was on a debt issuance today, there was $275,000 worth of debt issued on excess revenue certificates of indebtedness issued by this Waterworks district, and they were issued today. So we did some preliminary, not as extensive as I plan on in the future, but I do feel that that this guarantee will, because it's going to be $20,000 a year, they're going to be, the principal and interest payments is actually $27,500, but we're going to be reducing our guarantee $20,000 a year. So I feel that this one has not gone through our total process that we had because we hadn't established it as of till tonight. So this happened today. So for the future, I think we're going to be going to a different process. But I think Jay Delafield and Sandy have worked on this and feel comfortable that the debt will be repaid. And basically, we're only guaranteeing $100,000 of the $275,000.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. Ms. Griffin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I ask for a motion for the Budget Committee presentation to you, I'd like to acknowledge and ask Mr. Spell, giving him personal privilege to speak on number 9 in reference to the police jury working with the City of Lake Charles.
Yes, go ahead, Mr.
I want to thank my colleagues for allowing me this brief time to recognize a very special group of people, which I think relates to our item 5.4 on the agenda, which is funding for Millennium Park. Just recently, we had a group of outstanding young men and women went around Moss Bluff taking donations to provide to the people that will be moving forward with the rebuilding of Millennium Park. And I thought it would be a great idea for us to recognize them today for their outstanding, unselfish, and neighborly actions from the people of Moss Bluff to their neighbors to the south in Lake Charles. The ringleader, I guess we can say, Mr. Cooper here, really got everything rolling, and then he enlisted the assistance of a great group of young men and women. And Mr. Cooper, if you wouldn't mind just real quickly introducing your colleagues here, and then we'll say a few more words of appreciation.
Hi, my name is Cooper Lynn. The first person I'd like to introduce is Austin Sutherland. The second person I'd like to introduce is Hayden Benoit. The next person I'd like to introduce is Brittany Lance. The next person I'd like to introduce is Madison Youngblood. The next person I'd like to introduce is Leanne Chapman. And the next one is Carly Quinn. And the next person I'd like to introduce is Gabrielle Myers.
So, Mr. Cooper and your colleagues, on behalf of the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury, I'd like to present this certificate of appreciation to you, presented by the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury on this day, the 21st day of April, 2011, to Cooper Cares, in grateful acknowledgement and appreciation of a campaign called Pennies for the Park to raise money to help rebuild Millennium Park in Lake Charles, and in so doing, giving back to the community and making a big difference in improving the lives of others. Thanks for a job well done. Keep up the good work. Signed, Shannon Spell and President of Police Jury, Mr. Guy Brain. Mr. Cooper said that they needed to get back to raising money, so he didn't have any additional words to share.
Thank you, Mr. Spell. Ms. Griffin, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, sir. I'm so very proud of these young adults, and also the fact that it's really coming in right on time because of the fact that the police jury just endorsed our assistance to help rebuild the Millennium Park. Thank you, Mr. Spell.
They are. Y'all know how to take a picture now, I'm telling you. You got it. One more, Mr. Frame.
How's it going?
Read on my mint. This ends bad, but the rest is good.
Ah, yeah, that's not right.
Great job, guys.
Good job.
Yeah, good job.
Good job, Shannon.
Oh, God loves you. I do too.
Do we have any numbers on current funds raised to date, Mr. Cooper?
Cooper.
Do we have any information on current funds raised to date? Well, we'll get a report from you later then.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
All right.
That is awesome.
Mr. President,
Yes,
at
ma'am.
this time, I move to ask for a motion from my colleagues to accept all 10 items presented to you from the Budget Committee.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Trimmy and a second by Dr. Mackey to approve, and with no other discussion or objections. Go ahead, Mr. Scott.
On number 9, Mr. Milner, are we going to put a cap on the amount of district can, that we're going to guarantee? Because $2 million doesn't go too far. My second question would be, are we going to put a stipulation on, is this going to stay in sewer and water and fire protection, or is this going to grow into parks and all these other things that we like to have for comfort?
I think we'll have to come back with subsequent, meetings to discuss maybe more criteria but we were trying to set some manner to, start the process. And $2 million, that would be up to the jury whether y'all wanted to increase it or not, and whether you wanted to stipulate a certain amount, a limit per loan. That would be really up to the jury.
Can I add to what Mr. Milner's saying, that as we envision it, it would include any special service districts. They're component units, but fire, recreation, water, drainage, things like that. But some specifics we'll come back with. But that was the intent.
Are we going to be granting money and then using that
recreation.
money to go against? So we grant money for $50,000 to help a district, and then they turn around and ask us to guarantee against what we helped grant for already? Is that going to be
I
in
don't,
practice?
that wasn't the intent. The intent
Okay.
was really to make a legitimate loan that they had the ability to pay back, and we were just going to guarantee them to get a reduction in interest rates so we could help them in that manner only. like I said, we're going to do due diligence to make sure that they have the capability to pay back before the loan is made. So it's not going to be really a loan. It's going to be a loan. It's not going to be a grant disguised as a loan.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
President.
Mr. Scott. Ms. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the record, during the Budget Committee meeting, and as I gave the report tonight, I did request that Mr. Milner set his criteria and his recommendations and then bring it back to the full jury so that we could have the information for further use. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Mr. McMillan.
Thank you. Basically, in bringing this up, I kind of talked with Jerry and Brian on this. I have a recreation district that's looking at trying to purchase some property, and basically, we wanted to look at coming to the jury to kind of have a co-signer so we can get a very low interest rate for these guys to help them out. It's a beautiful piece of property, and we're working forward with that. At a later time, I may be coming to this jury to talk to you about the amount. The cap situation, this money's not going to be spent. It's going to stay in reserve, and they have to guarantee that loan. So it's not like we're spending $2 million. It's just a pledge of money that would help deem down the interest rate. I think this would be very good for our parish, that we could work with our recreation districts and our different districts to help guarantee these loans like we are with Sandy's district on that behalf. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. McMillan. Mr. Hassan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Milner, when you bring it back to us, we can set some of the criteria, I would assume at that time, on allocations to districts, so we don't end up with everything in Mr. McMillan's district.
Wouldn't want that.
I think that's Ms. Griffin's
I think that's the
intent.
biggest concern of most of the jury right now.
Right.
Thank you very
That's
much.
Ms. Griffin's intent.
Thank you. Is that it, Mr. Hassan?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Stilley.
I was just going to make not a comment about how in particular, but just that, I mean, the smaller the amounts we put out, the further we can make the money go. More projects, so that's simply just a comment I wanted to make.
Thank you, Mr. Stilley. Ms. Trimmy.
Yeah, and just for clarification, the Water District did go before the bonding commission and did all the due diligence through Chase Bank, and were able, because of this, to be able to get a 3.37% interest rate. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Trimmy. All right, without any other discussion, do I hear any objection? Hearing none, that item will carry, which was item 11. And we'll go to item 12. And before we go to take action on 12, there's, I would like to just read this comment. Before action is taken on this item, I'd like to take just a moment to thank all the citizens who attended tonight's meeting to have their voices heard regarding this issue. The Corps of Engineers will ultimately be the deciding body for this proposal, but it is important that as much input possible is received from the interested parties. A summary of all reasons for any opposition expressed to the proposed project by members of the public will be included as a part of the formal resolution adopted by this body. With that said, I'll go on to item 12, which is consideration of adopting a resolution indicating no objection to the following proposed project in Calcasieu Parish. Bullet 12.1, proposal of Stream Wetland Services LLC to construct 3,550 linear feet of man-sized rock and 7,400 linear feet of earthen containment dike. On March 24, 2011, the police jury deferred the action for 30 days. The planning staff recommends that the police jury indicates no objection to this project application.
Make a motion to discuss.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Farnham and a second by Ms. Griffin to discuss. With that, Mr. Vickers.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'll try to be very brief. I know that we have a number of people that wish to speak tonight, and this will kind of give you a little recap of some of the things that we have done. Historically, the police jury has been notified by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers regarding public notices on projects. When we receive these notifications, the planning staff reviews the project narrative to determine if the project complies with our ordinances. After the staff review, the project is placed on the police jury agenda for a letter of no objection to be forwarded to the corps. The corps typically allows a 30-day comment period. However, at the police jury's request, the corps granted an additional 14 days for comments. The parish government is usually the recipient of the corp's notices for all projects, including those within the city boundaries. When formulating the recommendation, the staff does consider any comments provided by the affected municipality. In the event that the project is within a municipal area, the municipal ordinances will prevail. With regard to this particular project, the staff has had discussions with representatives of Stream Wetland Services, as well as the neighboring residents. Following those discussions, the staff also contacted the City of Lake Charles and the Corps. We have spoken with Ronnie Duke and Dr. James Barlow with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Both have indicated that the Corps will consider substantive comments, even if the comments are submitted after the deadline for public comments. However, there are no plans to hold a public hearing on this matter, nor are there plans to extend the comment period past the 14-day extension previously granted, and this is vis-a-vis the Corps. In the discussions with the Corps, their representatives have indicated that the Corps encourages these types of projects. They further indicated that the streams have done this type of project with 11 mitigation banks in Louisiana, and 5 of those being within Calcasieu Parish. Finally, Dr. Barlow explained that this project, he felt, will restore and protect property. Because of the location of the property, the Corps does not consider this a national waterway. In light of this information, the staff recommends that the letter of no objection be submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Vickers. We have Mr. Hassan like to address you, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Vickers, anytime a development is done in our parish, one of the things that we require is a drainage impact. And I'm just curious why staff didn't ask for a drainage impact. What I'm looking at a letter from the Gravity Drainage District that they have an objection to the project because of its impact on drainage, or lack of information of what that impact would be. If we wouldn't move forward with the development, why would we approve this project?
Well, this particular project is located within the City of Lake Charles, and therefore they are subject to their regulations. A drainage impact in the unincorporated area would not be applicable here.
Okay, I understand your answer, but I still think that would be something that staff would make a consideration on, that we wouldn't allow in the unincorporated area without an impact study being done.
Well, I just don't think we have the authority to go within the municipal limits without them permitting us to do so. And like I said previously, that their ordinance prevail as long as it's within their statutory limits.
What did the City of Lake, has the City of Lake Charles issued an objection, no objection? Are they part of that process?
We contacted the City of Lake Charles. We didn't get any recommendation whatsoever from them.
I just don't think we can ignore the Gravity Drainage District that's responsible for that area without enough information to know whether or not it does have an impact.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Hassan. Mr. Landry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Vickers, do you have any idea why the Corps would not allow any public comment? I mean, normally that is done, is it not?
They do allow comments, and just after, if you look, what I just tell you, Mr. Landry, is basically is that they are willing to allow public comments even after the deadline expires.
In the form
Now,
of a letter?
Yes, but what they didn't want, I don't think, was, or what they told us was that they didn't feel like a public hearing was necessary.
There sure is a lot of people here, and I don't think they're here just to see what all else we got on this agenda, I don't believe.
What? And with all due respect, I mean, obviously, we don't have that choice. I mean, that's solely up to them to make that decision.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Landry. Okay, any other jurors? Okay, we're going to go ahead. David Richard?
I have one, Mr. President.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Sias.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman, I'm trying to understand the question that Mr. Hassan just asked you a while ago.
Yes, sir.
Because you're saying that the city of Lake Charles is responsible for the drainage information that we're looking at? Is that what you're saying? Or what did you say?
What I'm saying is this project takes place within the city of Lake Charles. And Mr. Hassan asked me if a drainage impact statement would be, or drainage impact study would be needed there. The study could be done. We cannot do that within the city of Lake Charles right now because our ordinances only are applicable to the unincorporated area.
But our decision can impact it, right?
Well, it can impact in the way that we will obviously come away from here making a recommendation, yes. Now, our drainage engineers here, I mean, they have looked at the drainage. It's not like we didn't pay any attention to it whatsoever, and they may want to, give you what their feelings are concerning that. But, I mean, this lies within the city of Lake Charles, so we can't just come and impose our ordinance and regulations on them.
Right. And I understand that part of it, but at the same time, with us making a decision, the decision that we can make today can impact that. And so it just seemed like it would be hard for us to try to make a decision on something that we don't have the information. And that's just, even though it doesn't fall under our umbrella, the fact of the matter that we still would need information to make a good sound decision.
Right. And I would tell you this, Mr. Sias, is that, what the Corps basically asked for, they asked for public comments and so forth. And I guess since the administration of Rodney Vincent, the parish has always participated in this comment period, and that's probably been over 30 years. So we've had a history of doing this. It's not often that we have objections to Corps of Engineers permits, but sometimes we do, and I mean, obviously, this is one case that we do have objections. We have had other objections as well, but not that many. We usually have probably, I would say, 25 permits. I think we had 25 Corps of Engineers permits last year solely, and it's kind of a bad economy. I expect that's going to probably eventually go up more and more. So that's pretty much what it is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sias. Mr. Hassan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to clarify, I understand that we couldn't require it, but the Gravity Drainage District said they couldn't make a recommendation because it wasn't available to them. I guess my expectation was, with all due respect, I would think staff would require the same thing. And if it isn't supplied to them, yeah, you can't require it, but you don't just make a recommendation of no objection without it. That's just my opinion. We as a jury rely on staff to bring us that information, to have researched that information. And if it's not there, just like I said, for any other development, we would have required it, or it doesn't budge from that point.
Well, I'm not sure for any other development we would have required it.
I don't know. We don't have a development code right now, so it's kind of up in the air.
We do have limits as to, and we have triggers as to what triggers those types of developments, okay, in terms of drainage, obviously.
This is a huge trigger point, I would imagine, just based on the letter from the Gravity Drainage District. It impacts the drainage of that whole area.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you, is I have not seen any letter from the Gravity Drainage District. No, I'm honest with you.
Please, let me just make a comment. If y'all could just keep it down, stop the clapping, just just have respect for the other party that is here tonight on this issue. I'd appreciate it. Thank y'all very much.
I yield the floor.
Go ahead, Mr. Bean.
I'd just like to make a comment. As a part of this review, I know Tim Connor's been involved, and Alan, and met with Walt Jessen, who is the engineer for that district. And if there's something official from him, he has been the point man. I don't know all the details, but I know that he has dealt with this extensively and relying on whatever comes from him to that board. I think if there's a formal board opposition to that, that needs to be a part of the record. But in this particular case, that he's the one that's needs to be relied on that, and it is different from something you would do as far as your own projects. It's a different kind of thing, so we have to rely on that. But those discussions have been held. I've heard different information that there might have been some questions about it. My understanding is that those were addressed. I don't know to the satisfaction of Mr. Jessen, but he's really the key in this. I don't know what his official position is or the board, but that certainly can be part of the record. But there was no indication, I think, from our end that that was a total opposition to the project.
Thank you, Mr.
You can make that a part of the record.
Yeah, because it's got Mr. Jessen's name on it as well as the rest of the board, so.
Mr. Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, I am very curious as to why the city wouldn't at least give their input. You know, as far as an impact study, I agree. We can't. It's not up to us to spend money on something in the city, in their city limits. Just like they don't have a stormwater runoff permit, but yet all of their ditches run into the ditches that we have to continue to keep a stormwater. So they don't have to put up the silt fences like we do. It's not totally required. So we do deal with some of the problems of the city going into our drainage. Now, it's another thing is our drainage board, if they're saying there's a problem because they don't know compared to, I wish they had a reason to say, this is definitely not going to help because. And they collect taxes and they have a way to look into these kind of things. So they're the professionals in this. I would have liked for them to have at least said, this is how it's going to impact that we believe. At least say we believe this is what could happen and not just say we oppose it because there's no information or we don't know what's going on. So, you know, I would like to have a little more information on it. And I just, for the record, I wish the city would have said where they are on this. That would have been nice for me. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Any other yours? Go ahead, Mr. Scott.
I just want to comment also on like I said, on Mr. Hasson's, the document that he just showed you all, I did, when I heard that the Drainage Board had objected to this, I did ask. I mean, I went and asked the Drainage Board, and I did also get that particular letter from the Drainage Board themselves, stated that it was done. So there was objection from the Drainage Board that I know of that took place. So.
Thank you, Mr. Size. Go ahead, Mr. Farnham.
Thank you, Mr. President. Alan, I guess this one's for you. Do we have the Fenstermaker report for that Ward 3 completed now?
Yes, sir. That report is complete.
And do we have the hydrology study information for that area?
I do not, off the top of my head. I have to go find out.
I guess that's my question.
Yeah.
Do we have the means? And supposedly out of that study was supposed to come hydrology programs that we could run these type of things for ourselves. Have we done any of that?
I don't think in this area that we were doing hydraulic modeling in this particular area. We may have, some of the watersheds we looked at were, generally speaking, outside of the city limit areas when we went through the Ward 3 area because of the ability to more or less look at the parish issues that we have that we could fund projects on. I really believe that we didn't look at this particular area. We didn't model every lateral in the parish, make sure we understand that. We modeled problem areas and core backbone areas that we felt like future development would come to that we wanted to be a handle on. In this case, this is an area now that was way downstream at a point where we probably at the parish level could not affect the drainage either way.
Was this one of the areas, there was 2 areas that the Army Corps were doing part of that study? And was this part of one of those 2 areas?
Just catching me cold, I would have to go back and review those to see exactly what was studied under the core projects.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Farnham. Any other yours? Okay, we do have some speakers on this item. First, I'd like to call up David Richard with the Stream Wetlands. And David, if you would just state your name and address for the record.
David Richard, 7551 Harris Road, Bell City, Louisiana. Thank goodness. I've been a refugee for 5.5 years in University Place, and I've moved to the country.
There you go.
I've got some handouts of this PowerPoint that I thought we'd give to the jury. I appreciate being able to be here, the jury, and thank you, President Brame. And Ellis, I want to get to the drainage issue when we get to that particular point in here, so I can give you all the scenario and the meetings and the details that we have applied that maybe can clear up some of that point.
David?
Yes.
How long do you think your presentation will be? I'm just curious.
However long you tell me, Guy. If you want 15 minutes, that's fine. If you want 10 minutes, we'll talk fast.
Let's keep it to about 10, 12 minutes, if we can. Alan, can you do that for us? Okay. That way, we may sit here for 20 minutes and not keeping time, so that's okay.
And the other side, too.
And the other side will get the same amount of time. Okay, thank you, Dave. Go ahead.
No problem. The prospectus that went on public notice is listed as a proposed Old River Mitigation Bank, Calcasieu Parish, Louisiana. Sponsored by Stream Wetland Services, and I'm listed as the agent. Next slide. I didn't invent this particular procedure. The state of Louisiana, we've done 57 projects, 17,000 plus acres at a cost of $775 million over the past 15 years, what we have planned for the future. This is a method that we use across the state to rebuild land. And we have the ability to make land. If it was up to me, every spoonful of dredge material that's used out of every shipping channel in this state would be used beneficially. And this is an opportunity for us to do it on private lands with private monies to create marsh. And that's what this project is. This is, as we say in my business, this is motherhood and apple pie. We're taking a piece of marsh and we're creating it. These are the projects that are listed on the state. There are other projects. We're probably close to $1 billion in this state in doing it, and that's with your tax dollars, whether it's federal tax dollars or state tax dollars. That's what that has been. This particular project is with private monies. These do not include some of the projects that we have experience doing. Stream Wetland Services has worked with lots of projects. We're doing. You drive over the 210 bridge, you'll see one. You go through Bridge City in Port Arthur, you see one. Just finished a 1,200-acre area that we're doing near Sabine Pass. Go on the other side of Sabine Pass, you look at one of the largest ones in this country. And we're proud of what we do. We think it's the right thing to do, and it's saving the wetlands. That's what I've been doing for 40 years, and that's what we're doing with this project. You know, there have been lots of comments, and I'm going to here to dispel some of those. Number one was that we're really just doing this to build a subdivision on. There's no such thing. This is a core permit. We're building a wetland right here. One of the comments was it's never been done by this close to houses before. In southeastern New Orleans, they spent their entire CF budget, $13.5 million, in restoring a marsh adjacent to a subdivision. This is not new ground here. We have losing marsh in Louisiana. We've lost 1 million acres of marsh in Louisiana, and we're losing it every day. You got me talking fast, Mr. Brame.
Do it.
Next slide, please. This is just a vicinity map of where this particular project is. Next slide, please. It's a soil survey map. Just surveys out the soils from the Natural Resource Conservation Service. The next slide, please. This is a 1940 photograph of the area. We identified this piece of land. You know, I work as a land manager in a wetland restoration business. This is my backyard compared to your backyard. This is a backyard that in 1940 was a solid piece of marsh. It was cypress trees and cut grass. We recognized over time that this area needed to be restored because I'm going to show you in the following photographs what has happened to that piece of solid land. It has been owned by the Gray Estate since 1902. This is not some recent purchase. This is a piece of land that has been in this family for over 100 years. It is my responsibility as a land steward for that land to take care of it. Next slide, please. That's 1974. Now, you saw what we had in 1940. You can see what's there in 1974. The top right-hand corner of your screen is where Cypress Point subdivision is being built, or is built at this point in time. Because of the hydrology, and I'm not going to have time to go through the hydrology in regard to what's happening in this basin, but basically we lost the freshwater marsh. We went from a cypress line, Calcasieu Lake, to a brackish and saline marsh. You know, we have the good fortune in this country of having historical record through vegetative records and through photographic records. And sometimes we have the displeasure in my business of looking at that deterioration. It's not easy to look at 1 million acres of lost here in the last 80 years. You know, this is a particular piece, and that's what it looked like in '74. Next slide, please. This is what it looked like in 2008, and you don't have to be a biologist to look at land loss to figure out what has happened there. We have lost that piece of property. We've lost that. The soils were exported out to sea, and it's no longer a productive piece of land. Next slide, please. This is the present view. Next slide, please. This is the proposed view. This is what we want to build. This is a conceptual final view of what we want to build there. It's private land and private monies. I want to say again, because I have tried to keep you all updated with information, and I've also tried to keep the public updated with information, that this is not a dredge permit. This is a permit to deposit clean soils in an area to build marsh. We are going to, I got about 4.5 minutes left, Mr. Spell. We got, we have particular regulations that we have to follow. Those regulations are recap standards in regard to non-industrial, and we must be free of contaminants. I mean, it is written on your in a DEQ permit. Well, I'm not going to put contaminated soils there. I don't want contaminated soils in my backyard, and I'm not taking anybody else's contaminated soils. One of the things that was asked about in the core permit is where are you going to get them from? The Port of Lake Charles is running out of disposal areas. They just spent millions of dollars on a dredge material management plan to try and figure out what they're going to do with their dredge materials. They've told private industry, find a place to put your material. I got a piece of marsh that's degraded. I need material to build marsh. That's what this project is. It's just that simple. Essential fish habitat. I'm just going through some of these comments because I want to make sure that you're aware of. Essential fish habitat, we're creating essential fish habitat. You have got to have vegetation and vegetated marsh to create essential fish, to make primary productivity to produce fisheries. The wildlife and fisheries usage, I think, is going to be, there's no thinking, it's going to be tremendously increased in this project area because you're going to have primary productivity in vegetated marsh. Next slide, please. All right, I want to talk to you about that letter that was written from the Drainage Board, and I want to talk to you about meeting with these engineers. Okay, I met with engineers. One of the things that you do with a permit is when you put in that permit, it's a 8.5 by 11 sheets that say you must have a vicinity map, a plot map, et cetera, et cetera. It was not clear in the opening area of how much opening would be between Cypress Point and this particular, and the boundary of this particular project. So I went and met with Mr. Jessen in regard to it and showed him, he said, David, we need a cross-section, a view of what is the type of drainage that's needed for the D40 or W40 lateral, and y'all probably familiar with that. And we looked at the drainage area. That is 220-foot of opening right there. There's a 40-foot canal right-of-way that you can see in the slash lines and also on your paper. There's a 130-foot wildlife sanctuary that was in the Cypress Point subdivision plat. And we left a 50-foot buffer to make sure that we had plenty of room right there. That letter was written before this was supplied to Mr. Jessen. I supplied this to Mr. Jessen immediately after. They had no choice but to write the letter on the information that they had at the time. Mr. Jessen has the revised and has this detail. His drainage board meets next Tuesday in regard to this issue. He has assured us that 220 foot is more than enough room not to impede drainage. And I have met with the engineers with the parish, and we have gone through that particular issue with them also. So I have been through that. I just wanted to clarify that. Next slide, please. You got me fast here, Guy. I just wanted to show this particular slide, and it's not very well up there in the top, but I want you to look at the border along the river there. Calcasieu Parish recognized a long time we got a severe problem here with erosion along that river. That is a Christmas tree project built 10 or 15 years ago that has tried to maintain that bank, and what we're going to do is try and rebuild the marsh and maintain that back. Next slide, please. It's a land loss slide. I mean, you know, we can sit up here in these buildings and not know, but you look at that particular slide and look at the red south of Calcasieu Parish. There's lots of it and lots of land loss, and that handout is going to show you the yellow in there is predicted land loss between 2000 and 2050. Next slide, please. This is the Hurricane Ike inundation in Calcasieu Parish. Red's 10 foot and above. You're going to see the areas that is in brown is 8 to 10 foot. Yellows is 6 to 8 foot. Goes all the way up into the northern part of the parish. Next slide, please. This is an aerial photograph of basically from the industrial canal to Lake Charles. I want you to look at the errors on there. One of the reasons that this project is continuing to deteriorate is the water flow from the Old River, from the Haymark Terminal, that's going into the Old River adjacent to Cypress Point. We've got a flow through there that is causing extreme deterioration and more flow. Next slide, please. This is a closer view of that particular storm surge issue. You've got a huge conduit to the Gulf of Mexico, and for those of you living in North Lake Charles, or represent North Lake Charles, and represent West Lake, and represent the areas that are near that river, we need every bit of rebuilding of marshes along this channel we can get, because that water is coming at you up that channel, and with the losses of marshes that are there, we're working very hard to restore the marshes, and that has been, most of my career has been restoring marshes, and there's a lot of work to do, and this is a little piece of it, but a small piece, but it is a piece that will help in the flooding that can happen in Lake Charles. Next slide, please. This is what a created marsh looks like. It is not a monster. It is not some problem area. This is what it looks like. Next slide, please. These are actual marshes that we have created that I've shown you pictures of. Next slide, please. Again, the wildlife associated with it. Next slide, please. This is a high-dollar development in regard to lots that are adjacent to marshes. I'm going to tell you that we're doing this project for the right stewardship of the land. I will be glad to answer any and all questions in regard in any aspects of the project, and I want to thank you for the time that you gave me to explain the project.
Thank you, David. We may have a few questions. Does any of yours have a questions? Okay, not at this time, but you may later. Appreciate it. Okay, we have a few speakers. How much time did you take, Alan?
He used 12 minutes and 39 seconds.
Okay, I have 4 speakers, so we'll just 4 minutes, 3-4 minutes apiece. Philip Gazzino. You'll just state your name and address for the record, and Philip, give you 3-4 minutes.
3-4 minutes?
Well, just go for it.
Well, I thought we each had 12 or 15 minutes.
Oh, no.
3 or 4 minutes. I'm going to have to speak very quick. Philip Gazzino, 4319 Edgewater Drive, Lake Charles, Louisiana. First, I want to object to what he said. If you'll please disregard everything he just said, I'd appreciate that. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, we have some serious issues here, and I know this project is, I know everybody wants to get home for Easter, so I'm going to go as fast as I can. Over the drainage, D40 lateral comes in. You have roughly 1,400 to 1,500 acres drains into this area behind our house. This small area they have only has about a 30-foot actually deep canal, and the rest of it is shallow, about a 2-foot area for water to drain off of. We feel this is going to seriously impact the homes all the way back up to Big Lake Road, and it's full of houses all on the north side of that lateral coming through there. Environmental issues, you have potentially chemicals from, this is all coming from Citgo docks, from the ABC docks or whatever at Citgo refinery. Potentially full of whatever chemicals you can imagine. I've got EPA studies already on my desk now that show that every area they're fixing to dredge from is red hot spots, they call it, with hazardous chemicals and material in it. I don't see how they plan on doing that and saying we're gonna dump clean dirt in the back of your yard. This is not happening. I'm trying to go fast for you. Dredging. It's going to take 10 years on their estimated time to do this dredging. We're going to have to look at this project ongoing for 10 years. We're going to have to smell the rotten odor. You all know what it feels like when you dig dirt, especially that's been sitting that low full of chemicals, and you start spreading it out over a long period of time. We're going to have airboats. We're going to have noise. We're going to have everything under the sun right in our backyard for 10 years looking at this project. Health issues, you got the airborne issues from the smell and the materials, particulates left in the air. You have the drainage. When you're dredging, you got 350,000 cubic yards of dirt they want to put in there. That takes 6.5 million minimum gallons of water to flow that to you. Can you imagine when you disperse that much rotten chemicals in the water into the, that's all got to drain back into the lake, and our lake and the river and everything else. So everybody's going to be impacted with this. Health issues, as you well know, from the chemicals, not only in the water, the fish they have to eat, and the smell, I think is enough to stop this project. Property values. Can you imagine trying to sell your house or get new people to come in there when you have nothing but a levee and raw mud from one end of the from the lake to the other side? It's going to be unbearably ugly and very difficult for us to do anything. And the Calcasieu Parish is going to lose tax revenue because as the property values fall, the tax assessment is going to have to fall with it. And y'all are going to lose the money for the remainder of the time if this thing lasts 40, 50 years, however long this is going to go. Alternate sites. The streams have an incredibly number of alternate sites to put this on. And I've already talked to Mr. Richard about it, and he said we're saving that for other projects. Well, all the other projects he had are not by houses, not into subdivisions. I think that's absolutely ludicrous for them to come in at our backyard and put this stuff in there when they have plenty of other locations to put it. The plan that they showed right now alters the natural flow of water. If you look at those maps he stuck up there earlier, the water flows from north to south and has flown north to south back from the 1800s. The state of Louisiana, when they surveyed it, drew it in there. The maps, the earliest maps we found, I think was 1940, whatever, it still shows it in there. This is not a natural flow, and you're not supposed to impede the natural flow of water in any project you do. Mosquitoes. Can you imagine 220 acres of saltwater mud marsh right next to your house? I mean, I understand we all like to hunt and fish. The first thing you do when you go out in the marsh, you cover yourself with enough mosquito control and stuff like that to keep all that off of you. You're going to have rats and snakes growing and crawling all over your house and everything because it's right next to it. This is a large, as you saw on the map, it's a huge project right in the subdivision. If you would look at on the Corps, when the Corps sent the permit out, they conveniently left out that the D40 lateral drains into there, so there was no comment. No one even considered that. The residents who would be affected, they sent out 4 programs. All right, real quick. So much criteria, I don't know. The loss of use, we've lost all of that. I'm going to ask y'all one thing real quick. Everybody's commented on us from day one and saying, why are y'all against saltwater marshland creation and stuff? We're not, and I'm not saying I don't want it in my backyard, but here's the deal. They're going to create 220 acres of saltwater marsh, and all of y'all are saying, well, this is great, this is really nice for the community. But they're only doing it for one reason only. A mitigation bank is to destroy 220 acres somewhere else, so you have a zero net gain of anything on this project. The only people gaining on this project are the streams, and that's it. Now, I've got one more real quick thing, and I'm going to leave you alone. I've drawn y'all a mental picture of what our subdivision is now, as beautiful as it was, and what this thing is going to turn into if they do this project. If y'all vote for an objection on here, y'all will give us time to get it on pencil and paper. We've had 30 days to do this. They've had 6 years to play with this plan. Thank you very much for y'all's time.
Thank you, Philip. If I could keep y'all from clapping, I'd appreciate it, okay? Just out of respect. Okay, Mr. Baggett.
You used 5 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay, okay, Chris, you got to talk fast.
Okay, can I hand this out first? Is that
Go.
Jessica can.
Jessica, take care of it.
Chris, just state your name and address for the record.
Chris Baggett, 4944 Bayview Lane, Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Okay.
I want to thank y'all for allowing me to speak on this as well. I want to kind of address the drainage issue as well. I kind of had that in the back of my items to speak on. But, you know, it says that the drainage isn't something that the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury looks at. Well, here's your organizational chart. And under the organizational chart, under Division of Engineering and Public Works, one of the areas is drainage. And that's something that we have sat and we met with the staff. We talked about our concern for drainage issues and what was going on with that. And in those papers that I handed you, there's a report from Owen and White Consulting Engineers that we went and got because we didn't think that what was going on here was going to help us out and let us know if there were drainage problems. I'd spoken to Wes Crane about the drainage issue, and his comment to me was that, you know, I said, did y'all do any rate calculations or have any hydrology studies done? No, but we talked to Walt, and Walt didn't think it would be a problem. Well, we can't go on think. We want to know. We live there. We're affected by floodwaters that come in and out with storms more than a lot of people at higher elevations. So, I mean, some of those houses out there flooded, and, you know, that's just something that we're very concerned about. The Corps of Engineers, their permit criteria, it says, I'm going to read this to y'all. It says, the decision whether to issue a permit will be based on the evaluation of probable impacts, including cumulative impacts of the proposed activity on the public interest. That decision will reflect the national concern for both protection and utilization of important resources. The benefit, which reasonably may be expected to accrue from the proposal, must be balanced against reasonably foreseeable detriments. All factors which may be relevant to the proposal will be considered, including the cumulative effects thereof. Among these are conservation, economic, aesthetics, general environmental concerns, wetlands, historic properties, fish and wildlife values, flood hazards, floodplain values, land use, navigation, shoreline erosion and accretion, recreation, water supply, conservation, water quality, energy needs, safety, food and fiber production, mineral needs, and considerations of property ownership, and in general, the needs and welfare of the people. Well, it affects our property ownership, and it affects our needs and welfare, and it affects recreation. You see people out there that go boating and that fish out there on a regular basis. One of the other things in there is a little study from Dr. Philip Bedient. He's from Rice University. He's over their engineering program. He's very well known and respected throughout his community, and you'll see that within his report, he recommends an environmental impact study be done. As it relates to the Citgo spill in 2006, there was a vast area that was contaminated. That includes the area that Stream Wetland Services is wanting to fill in. In this package, you'll also see I've enclosed a copy of a lawsuit where they had filed a suit against Citgo. And if you look at particular on page 6, where it talks about damages, you'll see a lot of the same things we're talking about this project. Physical environmental damage to property, foul, noxious odors, fumes from hazardous materials deposited on said property, past, present, and future loss of enjoyment, past, present, future loss derived from use. All these things are the same things that we're seeing as property owners. Loss of marketing opportunity. So, I mean, this packet is very, very important. I think if you look at that, you'll see that. We're here. You guys are our voices here. All we can do is come up here and we can express our concerns on a limited time basis. But we're basically, it's your back. And when I talk to the Corps says, the guy that I talked to was different than what they did. He was a project development manager, who is Stephen Pfeiffer. He said that the police jury uses whatever powers they have in the decision that they make. And that covers drainage, everything that's on this little plat right here. When people pull up and they ask about what the duties and what the police jury oversees is right here: mosquito control, drainage. So all these things are on there, and we can't count on the Corps. We can't count on DEQ. I mean, when you look at the issue that Conoco, Conoco put all that dirt over in Westlake. I mean, we need you guys. We need y'all's help.
Okay, Chris, thank you. Mr. Vanderpont, you have a question for him? Or comment?
Don't leave.
Okay.
I'd like to address Mr. Vickers first.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Jimmy, ultimately, is the Corps of Engineers going to be the final say-so in this project? In other words, what we say may have some impact, maybe not.
I mean, I think that they'll respectfully, whatever input they get, they certainly will look at it, yes.
Well, if for what it was worth to you, I think the impact on the citizenry in your area is too great. I can't support the project and get that clear, okay? I'm going to vote no. But I want to give you a little history that you may not know anything about. Several years ago, the railroad wanted to put a sit yard in West Calcasieu in my district, District 13. Unanimously, this body voted not to rezone the property, okay? The attorney for the railroad came to the podium and said, "We appreciate your time, we appreciate your concern, but we're going to put it anyway." And they did, and it's there now. And they have about 12 or 1,500 cars that they bring chemicals in and out of 24 hours a day, which wasn't supposed to happen, but it is. I'm going to give you some advice. It's free, unlike Mr. Smith. He charges for his advice, so mine's not really worth anything. If you have any kind of avenue or pipeline, anything that you can negotiate to be sure that you're not impacted so bad at what the gentleman said previously about the smell and all these kind of things, I would urge you to do that. The Corps of Engineers, with the history that we have with those people here, ain't too good, okay? Mm-hmm. And I say that in all due respect.
Yes, sir.
So I don't know if I'm getting through to you.
Well, I understand your point. Very well taken, too, sir.
And It's merely a suggestion, and I understand the concern of the folks out there, and I sympathize with each and every one of you for having to be put in this situation that you are in right now. But I wholeheartedly support you, and I wish you well. And if there's anything I think that this body can do, I don't think anybody is against restoring marshland.
No, sir.
And I think it's a good idea. I think the location is wrong. That's the wrong place. That's the way I feel about it.
Thank you, sir.
That, Mr. What I would like to do is reserve a little time, depending on how the vote goes.
Yes, sir.
If you can come back to me, I appreciate it.
You bet you. I will, Mr. Anspont. Mr. Scott.
Yeah, I like to see things both ways. You know, you never know which way I'm going to vote. I'm going to just be honest, but I do ask direct questions. And, you know, the city don't mind showing up for ground breaking. I'm just wondering why they ain't interested in ground making. You know, how much time have you spent with the city, and what have they told you?
We met with Randy Roach, Doug Bugarez, and a few of their other representatives, and we addressed all of our concerns with them. They said that they would take a look at it and get back with us.
And?
We never heard anything. And I talked to Doug yesterday because I was looking at a zoning issue because, you know, we zone everything else. Why? I mean, you know, for construction projects, and I mean, you're talking 10 years. You're talking a 10-year project, you know, and if the Corps is going to close their eyes to these things where it's impacting a residential community, and the impact is as great as we feel it is, then somebody's got to talk to the Corps because, you know, the things that we approve here, that the police jury usually approves, is the 25. I bet 24 of them were probably a boat slip or a bulkhead. And that's all you do. You haven't had this. Mr. Richard said that one of them's been done in New Orleans. Well, you know, I mean, out of how many? I mean, they've done 57. I don't think they did that one. I don't know.
My next question would be asked on your land devaluing. You know, a lot of people would say driving down the end of that road looks awesome, great spot and everything, but you look across there and I see nothing but industrial plants set up across there. How has that, with the smoke and the smells from time to time, how has that affected y'all's value from building out there?
We don't get that much, you know, to me, we don't get that much smell. I can tell you during the Citgo spill we did. But other than that, we don't get a lot of smell with that. And actually, for me in particular, where my house points, I point a little southwest, so really the only thing I see is the Coke plant. I think that's what it is down that way. So I don't see the other industry over there. But I think that anybody that lives on water around Louisiana is going to see the plants. I mean, that's a part of our nature.
Okay. Mr. Brame, I do have questions for Mr. David if everyone's finished with him.
Okay. Mr. Bagger, we need to let somebody else speak.
Sure.
So you want to go ahead and address him now?
I'll wait.
Okay. Let me call up Tanya Palermo.
Excuse me, Mr. President.
Go ahead, Mr.
I don't know what time that we have, but I think she has a right to speak. We can allow Mr. Richard a little bit of additional time.
Everybody's done a good job. He was 5 minutes and 20 seconds. They're taking about 5 minutes apiece. Everybody's on schedule.
Tanya, just state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Tanya Palermo, 4916 Bayview Lane. I live right in front of the proposed project. And my biggest concern, I have a little boy that is the sweetest little human you've ever met on the planet. He just turned 4 last week. And I just am so concerned about him growing up near dredge material being dumped right there for 10 years. His entire development, he'll be 14 years old while they're still doing this project. You know, I don't think they can guarantee that toxins aren't in that dredge material, that yes, they say they do testing. How much is that testing? Is the testing every 5 feet? Is it every 2 feet? Is it every 2 feet of depth? And I just don't know. It's 350,000 cubic yards of soil coming from places like industry, the docks of industry, and they're kind of leaving that open-ended. You know, what other industries is it going to come from? I worry about everything with the testing, really. I don't know how they can really promise me that my son will be completely safe. And I also agree with Mr. Gazzino when he said, you know, when they make this marsh, they're going to destroy another marsh. It's a mitigation bank. It's not like we're building more marshes for the sake of a marsh. We're just going to put it in someone's neighborhood and harass all the neighbors intentionally. I don't even understand, honestly, why they would do this project here. Why don't they put it in coastal Louisiana where it's actually needed, desired, and appreciated? You know, we have so many people who are very, very upset by this, and for very real reasons. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for hearing from us.
Thank you, Tanya. Okay, any questions for Ms. Palermo? Okay, Tanya, thank you very much. Julie Lundy. Is she still here? How much time, Alan, does she have?
She only took a minute.
Okay. Just state your name and address for the record.
Julie Lundy, 4940 Fernwood. I'm very opposed to this project. We live right there around the corner from Chris Baggett. I love looking at the water. It's beautiful. I love when the rain comes across that water. It is absolutely beautiful. And if they put that marsh there, we won't really get to see that. I'm very opposed to the toxins, and like Tanya said, you know, how do we know that they're not going to put these contaminated toxins that cause cancers, they cause tumors, they cause every kind of destruction within the body. We love living there, and yes, we did experience, when Citgo happened, we did experience some smells and odors, but other than that, we don't experience that. It's very pleasant. I don't want a marsh. I don't want the snakes. I don't want all the alligators. We have a few of those right now, but if you put that much marsh right there, we're going to have a lot of snakes, a lot of alligators, and we have a lot of kids that live around that area. We have dogs, and they like both. So I would appreciate if you would hear what we have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, Mr. Scott, you'd like to address?
Yeah, I'd like to talk to
David, you want to come up to the mic? Go ahead, Mr. Scott.
I'm right up front, are you mitigating this in order to do something somewhere else to some other wetland, to build on it or whatever?
Okay. It is a mitigation bank. We run 11 of them in the state. We had a directive from George 41, our 41st president, that said no net loss. You want to build a gambling casino in Lake Charles, you want to build a Home Depot, you want to build a Walmart, you want to do a development, you want to drill an oil well. If you alter wetlands, 86% of Calcasieu Parish is wetlands. You want to do a wetland, you have to mitigate it. I didn't make the rule. You know what? It's given us the opportunity through the mitigation program and through wetlands restoration to restore a bunch of wetlands for impacts. You want to build your house and it's in a wetland, you have to mitigate it. Can we use this to mitigate it? I got to pay for it somewhere. You saw that first slide I put up there? $775 million spent of public money, some of your money, some of my money. This is actually going to be private money. Does it enable development? Does it enable industrial expansion? Does it enable the drilling for energy in the United States? Yes, it does.
How does this testing system go to make sure that there's nothing? How often is it tested? I know that's a lot of dirt, a lot of spoil being brought in. Give us a brief on how this is done.
Okay. Our permit, again, I want to say this. This is not a dredging permit. This is a permit to accept clean soil. We are mandated by Department of Environmental Quality that we have recap standards on that particular soil, which you test for heavy metals, for contaminants, for numbers of things, that any soil that comes into our area has to be tested and non-contaminated. It is tested prior, during, and after, because you cannot be disposing of contaminated soils. I don't want contaminated spoils. I want to rebuild a marsh with clean soils.
Is this 10 years? Is that an adequate number that we keep hearing?
10 years is a number, you know, when you apply for a permit, you got to go with your best guess estimate. And I sure don't want to be short. If I'm building a subdivision or if we're building a mitigation area, 350,000 cubic yards sounds like a lot of cubic yards. You can pump 350,000 cubic yards in 10 days. Most of the big dredges, a 27-inch or larger that's on the Calcasieu Channel, is moving over 35,000 cubic yards a day. First off, private industry is not going to mobilize a dredge, mobilize discharge pipe on their own. They're going to do it in conjunction with normal dredging on the Calcasieu River. And so they're not going to pay mobilization and demobilization charges. It depends on how much industry pumps. It could be finished in 6 months. It could be finished in 5 years. But you need that kind of time frame to put out there. Is there activity during that whole period of time? No. Of course not. It's got a very short period of time of disturbance. Very few times there's going to be disturbance in that particular area.
But almost all of this will be due to industry dredging?
No question about it.
Okay, that's right.
Okay, and that's what you need. You want a ship to come in, 80% of the economy of this particular parish is due to industry. If you don't have a ship come in, then you don't have a project. And you got to dredge. Now, we can all sit here, like Greenpeace and say we need to not dredge. We don't need to do anything as far as management of our wetlands. We want to let everything go natural. That's good. Put that 3-foot bar back at the mouth in Cameron. You won't have a ship come up here. You can go out to Cameron Jetties in a pirogue. That's just the way we are today. I want to make something clear. I don't want to be looked at here as a villain. We're trying to do a piece of marsh, and I am glad to explain everything that has been asked here today. We don't want smells. We don't want snakes and alligators. We're creating a marsh. This is a marsh particular area, and we need to restore that particular area.
And I am going to tell you, I appreciate, and I've only known you for 3 years, and I go to coastal erosion. I understand the importance of this, and I spend a lot of time on it. And so I understand how important this type of project is. 6 years y'all been working towards this project?
Now, I will tell you, I envisioned it in 2004. It is my job as a steward of the land to envision where it was. I was accused during this particular issue of making some deal with Citgo. Okay, we had to show where the dredge material could possibly come from. I actually pulled my files, and we recognized this area, and not only this area, that needs to be restored on properties that we own or manage or are adjacent to, of areas that need to be restored where we could use dredge material. And this is one of them. And it was just, look, we had Hurricane Rita in 2005. Hey, I was looking for a roof. I wasn't looking to build a mitigation area after 2005. 2008, we're trying to rebuild things that got washed away in western Calcasieu in 2008. But now we have the opportunity to move forward. I'm sorry.
Yeah, my last question for you.
Sure, go ahead.
Would be, do you have another project that's close to here that you would be considering if this doesn't pass?
I will be honest with you that as soon as we can get this one done, there's actually adjacent pieces right south of here. Actually, I have another piece that's right south of there that I would like to do. This is the most strategic place. It's the most cost-effective piece, and it is in desperate need because of the amount of water flow. If you look back at that PowerPoint, you look at that water flow between the Haymark area and the old river right there, and it's coming straight through there, and it needs to be stopped. And that's just the fact of the matter. There's nothing made up here. I showed you photographs. The photographs aren't lying. We had marsh. Now we don't have marsh. I'm trying to rebuild marsh.
And I appreciate you coming up and answer questions, and I understand how hard you work at this, and I believe everyone in here understands the importance of this. It just happens to be in their backyard. I've got 2 questions for Mr. Beam, and he can defer them to whoever he wants to.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Scott.
Brian, right now, do we have to take action on this tonight? We can't defer it for a lot more of this information that people want to hear or know about as far as drainage or what the city would like to say about it or anything?
I'll let Jimmy explain the timing, but it's really the Corps' timing. So if you choose to do or not do something, it's by that date. If they don't hear it, then it's really probably not going to count. But I'd like Jimmy to address that.
Our deadline date, Mr. Scott, runs out on the 27th.
All right.
They gave us 2 weeks, basically, extra.
And my last question, Mr. Beam, do you think this would hamper? I know this parish does a great job at mosquito control. Do you think this would affect our budget in any way, or we wouldn't be able to take care of mosquitoes anymore due to this project right here?
Jimmy and the other staff who reviewed this, Scott Willis, our director took a close look at this, and the answer is we have this type of marsh in the parish, and we do what's necessary to address it. Will it make a difference as far as what they have to do? Yes, but we will treat it. So I would just say when you look at what's being asked as far as no objection, the mosquito control issue, in Scott's opinion and ours, and we support that, would not be something that would make or break it. We'll handle that. And as far as budgetarily, again, not enough to where this project should go or not go. I don't think so.
Thank you, jurors, for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Mr. President.
Mr. Hassan, you.
Thank you, Mr.
You need
President.
Mr. Richard?
Mr. Richard, would you mind coming back up? Tom, could you put the conceptual final view up? My question is, we deferred this on March 24th.
Yes.
To give an opportunity for the two sides to meet and discuss this project. Was anything talked about any type of compromise? I mean, this looks like it goes right up to their, to the, I know it's 130 foot, but 130 foot isn't really that far when you're just standing there looking at it. Was anything talked about a possibility of bringing this project back?
Sure. First off, it's 220 foot, 50 foot of which I gave. There's 40 foot of canal that was dedicated there that has been encroached upon by those landowners. You look at it on your map. I don't point it out. Your engineers pointed it out to me. You just look at it right there. It's a 40-foot canal right-of-way. You can look what's in it. There's 130 foot of wildlife refuge as done on the plat. That's not my land. That's their land. My property line is the black line right next to it where it says 50-foot buffer. Now, has there been any alternate plan offered to me? No. Did they discuss something with me and offer alternatives? No. Is there some water flow that could be changed? I would be glad to work with somebody to have avoided your trials and tribulations of this meeting and mine for the last 2 weeks. But the day after our meeting with them, the attacks continued. And so what do you want me to do, Mr. Hassan? I'm doing the right thing for a piece. I'm doing the right thing for a piece of marsh. And if somebody wants to negotiate, then come negotiate in good faith. Don't tell me you want to negotiate and the next day you go to attacking again. I'm doing a good thing for the marsh, a good thing for coastal Louisiana, and this is a good thing for all the citizens of Calcasieu Parish. I preach on the side too, Kevin, just in case. No, I'm kidding you. Anyway, I hope that answers your question. I don't mean to go on too far.
That's it, Mr. Hassan? Mr. Guidry. Mr. Guidry.
Thank you, Mr.
Don't run off,
President. What I'm getting, listening, taking a lot of it in, and this is a serious issue. And the problem that I'm having, David, I guess, on behalf of the constituents of that area is that I just feel like they're being rushed for whatever reason. I feel like I was listening to Mr. Chris. He came up and he was discussing some issues with the city. It seemed like that issue hadn't been dissolved yet. It seemed like there's still an issue with the city for who's going to decide on what and say this or say that. And that's the problem that I'm having right now. I mean, you guys do a lot of great things for this community. Believe me, I know that.
I appreciate that.
But when I look at the citizens, I just feel like us being here tonight, there's so many things right now that hasn't been resolved for us on their behalf as to what's going to happen. And I'm looking for answers in that area. And I know you don't decide the deadline on this. That's the core. I understand that, David. But I don't have enough answers tonight based on what I'm hearing to really feel good about what's going to be done. And that's the only issue that I think that I'm having here tonight, because they've got some constituents that came up. They don't have answers. And I don't want to sit here as an elected official and not be able to give them answers when they deserve them. And I want to make sure that whatever decision we make tonight, that it's going to be one that I can live with, that they can live with, knowing that we did the right thing.
I understand that. And Kevin, again, you got to understand, I don't make those rules.
I know.
The Corps has a 30-day period. They say, it's Mr. Landry asked a while ago about no public comment. Everybody has a chance for public comment. If there is something substantive in regard to the public comment, they are taken by the Corps in regard to the I have to answer I will answer and have to answer every objection that is sent. And I will answer every objection. and every objection letter that goes to the Corps.
Francis. Thank you, David.
Thank you,
Mr. Andrepont, go ahead.
I yield
Go
the
ahead,
floor.
Mr. Andrepont.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to make one thing perfectly clear with you. I am not opposed to restoring marshland. I'm not. I think it's a great thing. I just believe that this issue is just at the wrong place. That's just me. I got enough letters with no's that almost sound like when I'm talking to my wife, you know. It sounds to me like there was a disconnect in communication somewhere along the way. These people say they only had X amount of days or whatever. And in all due respect, I think the world of you, but I just can't support what you're asking me to do. I just can't. I just want you to know that.
I appreciate it. And you know, I will tell you, we don't make the rules. You know, this thing has been said about you only notified 4 people. We are obligated to notify the adjacent landowners. If I had to do it over again, Mr. Andrepont, I will tell you, I'm not a PR guy. I'm a biologist. I'm a wetland scientist. I'm a land manager. I am not in the propaganda business. You know, maybe there should have been more education up front. Anybody that knows me, and I have been before this jury enough, and y'all have seen me around this state enough, if you've been involved with coastal restoration, you know, knows where my priorities are and know what I do. But they don't know me. You know, I wish I could get this kind of activity when I try to get people to work for coastal restoration. I wish I could get them to write that many letters. But you know, maybe there should have been more of an education issue, because we're not doing anything wrong here. We don't do anything wrong, and I do not want to inconvenience anybody.
David.
Yeah.
Mr. Guidry.
I just had a question for Jimmy.
Oh, okay.
Jimmy, is there any way that we could possibly maybe extend this timeline to where the citizens could possibly get together and maybe discuss a little bit more with Mr. David to try and come to some medium to where we can look at it as saying both sides feel good about what's going to be done?
Mr. Guidry, I don't want to never say never. You know, and I mean, we could appeal to him again. I just think with what we have probably heard from the Corps folks, being Dr. Barlow and Mr. Duke, just like I said, they're willing beyond the deadline to receive comments, but they made it perfectly clear that there was going to be no public hearing regarding this. That's what they told me.
Thank you, Jimmy.
I call the question, Mr. President.
Okay.
No motion.
May I just ask a question?
We need a motion.
Motion to discuss.
Wait.
I'll make the motion to discuss.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's,
We already have a motion to
All right.
discuss.
Well, I had one question, if you
Yes.
don't mind, Mr. President.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Once a decision from the police jury is made, now this is the Corps out of New Orleans?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So God has spoken, right? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trimmy. Mr. Griffin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. In reference to what we've heard and the history that we've had with the stream and their family and all of the good things that they've done for us in Calcasieu Parish, I would hate to see this delayed, because from the communications that I've been through with the citizens in that area, delaying will not change their way of thinking, their mind. This is my opinion, we need to get this over with, because it has been clearly told to each one of us they're not interested in it. And I just would like for us to take some kind of stand tonight to get this over with, so that we will not continue to have the unrest that we've had. I've really had a busy 2 weeks with this here. And the citizens, if they don't want it, another meeting is not going to change their minds. So I would like to respectfully adhere to Mr. Andrepont's request for questions, so that we could take a stand on this. Furthermore, I would like to have a motion after whatever voting the results, that we don't bring this up again. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, we have a call for question by Mr. Andrepont. Can I have a motion on the floor?
Mr. Rice. The motion and the second that passed was to discuss.
That's correct.
Appropriate thing now is for somebody to make a motion one way or the other to act on this item.
Move.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion.
Move to.
What's the motion, Mr. Anderson?
To act on it, vote on it tonight.
You gotta,
What's the vote?
Or against.
to uphold,
To vote for or against the request. Is that what you're saying? Yes, sir. That's what I want to do. I'm going to move that we deny the request.
Okay. I have a motion by
Roll call.
Mr. Andrew Pont and a second by Ms.
Hold on, Mr.
Griffin to
Brain.
deny.
It's
Originally.
it's a technicality, but it's important because it's core wording. The word objection or no objection needs to be used.
If I may,
Go ahead, Mr.
I think the
Smith.
motion should be stated that he makes a motion to report an objection to the project, because you're asked to either object or not object. So he wants to make a motion to object, and that's the motion I'd suggest that we put on the floor.
Okay.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Motion to object by Mr. Andrew Pont and a second by Ms.
I'll
Griffin.
give you $20 after the meeting.
Need roll call.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Mr. McMillan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to say under discussion that this is a very tough vote because there's great parties on both sides of this. David Richard is a guy that stood up for coastal erosion for 40 years, and having coastal erosion in our parish is very important. But I can tell you this jury also listens to the constituency out there. So this makes this a very tough vote, and we are going to take it very seriously with this vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
Can we do a roll call?
Thank you, Mr. McMillan. Mr. Spill, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to say, one, Mr. Richard, I don't think you're a villain. The Stream organization, they've done a lot of great projects in southwest Louisiana, but I live up in the mountains in Moss Bluff, and with all the people that I've discussed this with over the last few days, you know, property rights have been brought up, and I just wanted to say that I went back and looked at state law because I felt we needed to reduce it to a most common denominator. And state law on this basically says that a proprietor can do whatever they want to on their property. However, they cannot deprive the liberty of another person's property or do any harm. That is really going to be the basis of my decision, and I just wanted to state that for the record. But I do want to also state for the record, the Stream organization, y'all do great projects, and please take this as no indication of, or of a reflection of what kind of work that y'all do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spill. Okay, roll call vote.
Clarification, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
A vote of yes is a vote to object to the project. Thank you.
This will be a reverse roll call vote. Mrs. Trimmie?
Yes.
Mr. Sias?
Yes.
Mr. Stelly?
Yes.
Mr. Spell?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes.
Dr. Mackey?
Yes.
Mr. Landry?
Yes.
Mr. Hassan?
Yes.
Mr. Guidry?
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Farnum?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Anderpont?
Yes.
Vote was unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Okay, Mr. Andrew Pont.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I'd like to put a motion on the floor that we send a resolution to the Corps of Engineers objecting the request.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion on that motion?
It's actually a resolution.
Any objection? Hearing none, that motion will carry.
We have to send a resolution.
Okay, we're going to have a 5-minute recess.
Yeah.
Give everybody a break.
Next week, you make a little
I
report.
figured that.
Okay, I'd like to call back to order the meeting. And we'll go to item 13, which requires no action. We'll go to item 14, consideration of adopting a resolution approving a cooperative endeavor agreement between the police jury and the city of Sulphur for the
Second.
transfer of properties acquired by the police jury through a FEMA grant due to repetitive flooding of the properties. I have a motion by Mr. Farnum and a second by Ms. Griffin. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. We'll go to item 15.
Move on 15.
Consideration of adopting a resolution approving the Louisiana Compliance Questionnaire, which is required to be completed at the beginning of the police jury's 2010 annual audit. I have a motion by Mr. Anderpont and a second by Mr. Hassan. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 16, consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the coordinator of federal program development to execute program-specific agreements with homeowners relative to housing-assisted payments contracts on behalf of the police jury. I have a motion by Mr. Collins and a second by Dr. Mackey. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 17, consideration of adopting a
Move on
resolution
17.
approving the submittal of a grant application and any revisions thereafter to the Louisiana Highway Safety Commission to strengthen the effort of the Project No Coalition. I have a motion by Mr. McMillan and a second by Mr. Guidry. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 18, consideration of adopting a resolution approving an agreement between the Police Jury, Office of Community Services, and the Louisiana Department of Children and Family Services to authorize an extension for the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development 2010 Transit Job Access and Reverse Commute Program. Motion by Mr. Farnum and a second by Ms. Griffin. Is there any discussion? Any objection?
I don't know. I thought I was going to follow.
Hearing none, motion carries. Item 19, take appropriate action on the bids received by the Parish Person Agent on April 13, 2011 for the Calcasieu Parish Project Number 2011-04. The agenda note is the parish engineer recommends that the low bid in the amount of $1,208,386.38 of RE Height Construction Company, Inc. be accepted. I have a motion by Mr. Collins and a second by Mr. Scott. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 20, consideration of accepting Calcasieu Parish Project Number 2010-10 as substantially complete. Have a motion by Dr. Mackey and a second by Mr. Spell. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 21, consideration of accepting the Calcasieu Correctional Center and Calcasieu Parish Sheriff's Office Administration Building boiler and chiller replacement as substantially complete. Have a motion by Mr. Landry and a second by Dr. Mackey. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 22, consideration of authorizing the parish administrator to advertise for bids for the Calcasieu Parish Project Number 2011-08. Have a motion by Mr. Landry and a second by Ms. Griffin. Go ahead, Mr. Farnum.
What does it mean, one or more? How many does more mean?
More than one.
Is there like a cap on this?
Two or greater.
Go ahead, Mr. Wainwright.
I think in this actual case, we're buying two. One is new and one's replacement. The more is equipment. We have additional equipment on additional units on additional equipment. It allows us to replace those if anything goes down, I believe. So the intent, I think, is two.
We don't have a need for an unlimited supply of them.
No, sir. It's on our equipment, so it would just be more or less an annual bid at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farnum. Any other discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 24, consideration of adopting a resolution of condolences to the family of Mr. Don Manuel, former police juror, District 1. I have a motion by Dr. Mackey and a second by Mr. McMillan and Mr. Spell.
Thank you, Mr. President. As everyone is aware, we lost a dedicated public servant last week who served the Moss Bluff community in Calcasieu Parish for 16 years. he will be missed greatly. And I appreciate the juries, because I know most of you served with him for a long time. And, they say not to judge a man until you walk, or lady, until you walk in their shoes. And after walking in shoes of public service for 3.5 years, you start understanding the sacrifices involved. So Mr. Manuel will always be appreciated for his love and commitment to the community, and he will be missed greatly. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Spell. Mr. McMillan?
Thank you, Mr. President. Of course, last name McMillan and Manuel, I got to sit next to Don for about 8 years, and it was just a tremendous honor to be next to him and serve with Don. What he's done from Buddy Ball to the senior citizens, Don was always there in Moss Bluff. He was like a leprechaun. It seemed like he'd find a pot of money. I think it was said at his funeral that he could hear a nickel drop in Baton Rouge, and he'd be down there to get it. But Don was a tremendous asset to this. I'd also like to commend Mr. Spell, who was at the funeral, as well as myself. And Mr. Spell went up and spoke on on Don Manuel's behalf and did an excellent job speaking. Anyone that's ever spoken at a funeral knows how tough that is. But Shannon got up there and represented this jury quite well and was very eloquent in what he said. And Don will be sorely missed. And boy, he had a loving family around him, and everybody that knew Don was touched by Don. And as Shannon said, Moss Bluff will be touched up there by Don Manuel's presence and what he's done, and the legacy that he leaves is a tremendous one. And Shannon does have big shoes to fill as a police juror in that district, and he's doing a great job, and he did a great job speaking at his funeral. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. McMillan. Anybody else? Okay. We'll go to item 25. Is an advised the adjudicated property will be offered for sale by the Director of the Division of Planning and Development on May 31st, 2011. Also, go ahead. Okay. My bad, Mr. President. That was item 25. Special item. We have additional items for consideration.
Move to suspend the rules.
Okay, I have a motion. Thank you, Mr. Hass. We have a motion to suspend the rules and a second by Mr. Scott. And are there any comments from the public regarding the placement of these items on the agenda? Okay, hearing none. Are there any jurors in opposition to this motion?
Move on item 1.
Okay, we have a motion to move on item 1. and
Excuse me, President Brame, I know this gets confusing
Did I
every
miss
time,
something?
but the motion first needs to be unanimously that you authorize this to be added, and
I
then
move that
take up.
we authorize the
Second.
addition of these two items.
We already had that motion by Mr. Hassel.
But you have to vote
He
it
added it
all.
to the agenda.
We got to vote on it, though. You didn't vote on it.
Okay, so I need to vote on that.
You just ask
Okay.
for a vote on Mr. Hassan and Mr. Scott's motion.
Is there any discussion or objection to Mr. Scott and Mr. Hassan's motion? Okay, hearing none. It's been a long night.
Is there any objection?
Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Landry to adopt item number 1.
And a second.
And a second by Mr. Farnham. Is there any discussion on that? Any objection? I guess I need to read that in the Consideration of adopting a resolution accepting Weaver Park's South Subdivision located off the Weaver Road in Section 26, Township 10, South Range 9, West, and Ward 3 of Calcasieu Parish. Okay, with that, is there any other discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Can I have
Item 2.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Scott on item 2 and a second by Dr. Mackey. Consideration of authorizing the parish administrator to advertise for the request for proposal for resident collection and disposal of solid waste for the unincorporated areas of Ward 2 through 8 in Calcasieu Parish. I have a motion by Mr. Scott and a second by Dr. Mackey. Is there any discussion?
I got one question. I thought we were going to do something with Ward 1 on the, on these requests for proposals. Was it?
Ward 1 is included, Mr. Farnham. It's technically, though, it's Ward 2 through 8 as far as the service area, but any contract, the Ward 1 is covered as per the recommendation.
They're just going to adhere to those same?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So they'll be included.
That's good. Okay, good. Is there any other discussion? Any objection? Okay, hearing none, motion carries. Before we adjourn, Mr. Hassan would like a first-appointed privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Beam, Mr. Vickers, Mr. Crane, Ms. Wallace, I don't know who this needs to go to. I'd like for discussion of the UDC, where we're at with it, on if we could include that for committee night. We extended an IDO last year for 3 months to the end of the year. At the same time, we also, right about that same time, a few months before the end of the year, we appointed a committee to begin reviewing that. We're 4 months into this year, and that committee has not met once. I know for a fact that members of that committee were very interested in serving on it and have made several recommendations to see the document. I would just like this jury to have an update, when those meetings will start, when that review will start, all of that, presented to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hassan.
Personal privilege.
Go ahead, Mr. McMillan.
I'd just like to remind the folks that a very important vote, right now you have the early voting going on, and be sure and vote on April 30th. This could be a major vote for Calcasieu Parish, and we would make sure that everybody gets out and votes on April 30th. Thank you, Mr. President.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion, second. We are adjourned.